Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Hi buddies, I have been battling some family issues for a while, but the recent incident is too overwhelming. I don't know whether I should just let go or insist on getting back at my little sister for her past actions towards Dad and me. I need the unbiased perspective of an outsider on the post. After witnessing our parents have a nasty divorce at the age of 7, my life had never been the same. By the way, I'm Ethan, 27 male, and I have a twin sister called Ella. Dad, 50 male, and my mom, Sylvia, 48 female, got married after my mom found out she was pregnant with us. This was partly because my grandpa was a church leader and wouldn't accept an abortion or childbirth out of wedlock. Dad had no problem with that since he loved mom dearly. But unknown to him, mommy never loved him as much. Mom started showing her true colors 4 years after our birth. Dad wasn't doing so great financially, but at least I can't point out a day in our lives, as far as I can remember, that he left us to starve. He's a very hard-working man and took up several jobs just to ensure we had a comfortable life, especially our very demanding mom. When Ella and I turned 6, things got out of control as our parents began quarreling a lot, and as kids, we couldn't do anything about it. This continued until that fateful evening, a day after our 7th birthday, when Mom requested a divorce. I overheard their argument that day. Dad said Mom was cheating on him, but she told him to blame himself for being so poor. So she never loved him and had only stayed to give birth to us. So now that she's done, she wants to end the marriage. I didn't understand what her words meant that very moment until I became older enough to comprehend. Dad begged Mom to stay, at least for our sake, but she refused. After that incident, I never liked Mom the slightest bit. Dad was in charge of us full-time while we only went to Mom's place during weekends. 3 months later, Mom remarried a super rich guy called Mike, 49 male. I never liked this new guy because he caused my family to fall apart. So afterwards, I pleaded with Dad not to send me over to Mommy again. However, Ella was different. She liked this new dude more than our biological dad and started staying over at their place for longer periods. When we turned 12, she begged Mom and Mike to make her their biological child. Mom came over to ask Dad for his consent. Naturally, Dad said an immediate no. But Ella took us both by surprise when she came out of her room angrily after overhearing Dad's response. The harsh words she said brought Daddy to tears. She said Dad was just a useless man. And that was why Mommy left her for Daddy Mike. Just like Mom, she wants a better life for herself and doesn't want to spend the rest of her life living such a poor and miserable life with an old freak like him. Dad was speechless for a while. When he managed to speak, he asked Ella, who taught her to say such cruel words. But she said any reasonable person could easily tell that he was just a useless man. I tried to convince my sister as well, but she simply told me to leave her alone. And I could continue staying with our miserable dad for all I cared, but she won't. By then the reality dawned on me that I had lost my sister as well. They adopted Ella and moved away to a different state. They didn't bother checking up on us again. We tried to reach them, but they simply ignored us until we finally gave up. This incident was a blow to my dad, and he never remarried again. He shut himself away from the world. As for me, I was only filled with hatred against them, so I didn't miss them much. Mom and Mike, through the years, had 3 kids together. They are of the ages 16 male, 14 female, and 12 female. However, the inevitable happened when Mike passed away in December last year after battling cancer for almost a year. In the end, money couldn't save his life after all. Now here is how the above information relates to the current issue that has driven me to make this post. After his death, Ella was devastated to find out that she wasn't included in his will. Even his apartment that they were in was willed to one of his biological kids as a pre-wedding gift, leaving Ella with nothing valuable except for a few sentimental items. The rest of his savings and assets were evenly shared among his biological kids. He knew Mom was a spendthrift, so he made sure to secure the future of his kids instead of giving her everything. Left with no option, Ella found her way back home after several years. Instead of missing us or regretting her past actions, Ella came with an ulterior motive. When she came, I just avoided her as much as I could. So did Dad. She tried starting a conversation with me multiple times, but I just ignored her. I wanted her to first apologize to Dad, but it seemed that wasn't her intention for coming. This went on for 3 days, but on the 4th day, she lost it. Dad and I were watching a football match when she came to stand right in front of us with some air of entitlement. She then asked why we were treating her as though she never existed. Her presence was irritating me, so I asked her to move away from the TV so we could continue watching our match. Dad asked her what exactly she wanted, that she had to leave her cozy lifestyle to see us. Then Ella suddenly said she wanted to know whether Dad had included her in his will. I was surprised. Dad told her no, which made her furious. She suddenly asked about our grandparents' apartment, which had been passed down to him. He calmly told her that was his only asset and he had decided to leave it to me. Dad's reply made her very furious. She then said Dad must rewrite his will and give her the apartment, as it was what he owed her all these years. I hated Ella and Mom to the guts, so initially I wasn't planning on interfering with her entitled behavior, but I had enough. I walked up to her before clearly saying my mind. I have suppressed that anger for several years, so it was time I ended it. I told her to shut the F up and listen to me carefully. The house she wants now had always been there before she abandoned us years back. I don't care why she desperately wants to be included in Dad's will out of the blue, but she should get it that Dad never owes her a penny. She decided to leave in the first place. After saying all those words, I felt relieved. Ella started crying and saying her stepdad excluded her from his will, and now Dad too was trying to do the same. So she must be included in his will. I told her not to forget that she heartlessly abandoned us years ago. So she should relax and enjoy every single bit of what karma has in store for her. Realizing that we won't give in to her demands, she packed her stuff and left for Mom's place. Somewhere around 7 p.m., Mom called me with a strange line. She claimed she was so disappointed in me for treating Ella that way and blamed Dad for not teaching me properly. Her statement agitated me, so I gave her a fair share of my thoughts as well. I told her Dad was so perfect and I would always choose him over her. Years ago, I already overheard her selfish reasons for divorcing Dad, so she had no right to talk about how he raised me. Thanks to her, Ella had become such a rotten kid with bad manners. So she should better advise Ella not to show up again until she has identified her faults and is willing to ask for forgiveness. The next time she comes around talking rudely back at Dad, I won't tolerate her nonsense again. With those words, I ended the call. I have received multiple mean texts from Ella and Mom, but I don't give an F. However, I'm in a daze about what to do because Ella is my only sibling after all. Yet I'm scared she might make more ruthless demands in the future if I give her the apartment. I will keep you updated on any new events. So am I the a-hole? Update. 2 weeks after my first post, Ella came specifically to see me. I was surprised and even started thinking she had finally realized her mistakes and was here to apologize. Oh, how wrong I was. Turns out she wanted us to sell the house and split the money. She claimed she had already found a buyer and all that was left was for me to convince Dad. I sat there in silence as she continued to babble on and on. She claimed the location was perfect, so the house was worth a lot. When she was done, I got up and reminded her in the coldest tone ever that the door was open and I wouldn't see her off before I left. I don't know what had come over Mom and Ella, that they could easily let their greed destroy our beautiful family. Our parents' past divorce and the current issue had made me shut off all thoughts of getting married. I hope they will both come back to their senses one day. Currently, I don't think there is a chance of a reunion between us. Ella's appearance, just for her selfish needs, had completely broken Dad, but I'm trying to cheer him up though. You're so not the a-hole OP. I'm sorry your mom and your sister are entitled a-holes. I can't even start to imagine what your father must be feeling. The only reason his daughter came back is because her rich stepdad is dead and he left her nothing. It would have been better if they were apologetic, but they weren't. They don't feel bad for what they did. How they left and how they dismissed you and your father for all these years. You owe them nothing. Your father owes them nothing too. Move on with your life and get comfortable with not having your sister or your mother in it. Take care, OP. Story 2. My 32 male's father, 68 male, is an old school parent. He was really pro boys and didn't show emotion and wouldn't let me cry when I was younger. I was never allowed to show affection to him either, and one of the only times I remember hugging him was my high school graduation and when my son was born. As a result, we're not close at all. The only reason I'm still in contact with him is that I'm close with my mother. She was always standing up for me when he'd give me the don't cry bullshit. Tonight, technically yesterday, my mom invited my son, 13 male, and I over for dinner. I haven't visited with my mom in a while, so I decided just to go after I picked up my son from school. Something had happened between my son and his best friend and he was upset. We talked it out on the way there and he was calmed down by the time we arrived. However, he got a text from his friend about an hour later, which was his friend dropping him. He was on the verge of tears, so I took him into the den in the back of the house and talked to him about it. My father walked back there and I was holding both of his hands and telling him to take deep breaths. He muttered something about how boys were stronger back then and he was being a sissy. He started to talk about how this generation is effed, and I immediately cut him off and told him to never tell me how to parent. He tried to tell me I was too soft and all 32 years of anger exploded into him. I told him he was a terrible excuse of a father and why I haven't cut him off. And then I said I want nothing to do with him and to never talk to me or my child again before leaving. I told my mom I loved her and still plan to remain in contact with her. On the way home, he tried calling me multiple times, but I declined the call until he gave up. He tried texting, but I just put his contact on to not disturb. I may have thought I scared my son though, as he's been really quiet since. I've never yelled in front of him like this before, so I can't see if I startled him. I also feel bad that my mom had to hear that. Like my son, I've never yelled like that in front of her before, and just feel bad since it's her husband. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, OP. Your dad's comments, opinions are really shitty and harmful, and I think you were right to stand up to him. That said, make sure you talk with your son about what happened and process it with him. That's definitely a really upsetting thing for him to have witnessed, especially when he was right in the middle of going through his own personal stuff. And if there's going to be a separation from his grandfather, that will affect him too. Glad you are raising your son differently though. That's amazing. Breaking generational cycles isn't easy at all, and you are doing it. Story 3. Last year, I bought my first house. It has 4 bedrooms with me, B, C, and D. We have 2 guest rules. Send a heads up if you're having guests and don't leave guests home alone. It's usually FYI, friends coming for dinner, or FYI, boyfriend staying the night. Dee's family lives about 5 hours away. Her siblings range from 2 months to 20-year-old. She also has a large extended family and told us they were coming for the weekend to visit. She never mentioned a hotel and I asked, "Hey, just curious, where is your family staying? I just can't have a whole family here." She said, "Of course not, they have a hotel, but can my sister stay some nights? She misses me." I said, "Of course your sister can stay, I just meant the house can't support a whole family." They cancelled on her last minute. The next weekend, she had to work all day both days. Her family decided to come up that weekend and drove up Friday night. She texted us Friday around 11:49 p.m. saying, "Family came in late. It was spontaneous. Can they crash in the living room and check into the hotel in the morning?" I was at my boyfriend's house. B and D were also away that weekend. No one saw the text or replied till the morning. I thought it was fine when I read it since it was only for the night. Sunday morning, I got a text from B. "Why is there a toddler in the living room? And who's the old guy?" She came home to several people in our house. I immediately called D and asked, "Why is your family in the house without you?" She said they ended up staying and she didn't tell us cause her weekend was crazy and she was busy. I said that her family has never been to our house before, doesn't have a key, she wasn't with them, and she didn't tell anyone. She told me her mother, stepfather, grandfather, a toddler, I don't know who, teen sister, and the 2-month-old were there completely alone for nearly 2 days. and her grandfather isn't vaccinated. I don't think her family was going to break or steal anything, and this wasn't financial because she told me they shopped a bunch and had already had a hotel booked. Afterwards, I told her I was sorry for being abrupt, but it caught me off guard and please don't do it again. She agreed and we moved on. New Year's Eve, she does it again. Told us her family would come up to visit Saturday morning and they had an Airbnb. She texted us New Year's Eve 10 p.m. My family decided to drive up today due to weather, and we don't check in until tomorrow. I called her immediately and said that she needs to find a family a place for the night and the house is not an option. She told me they were looking. I found out the next day that B came home and was again surprised to find all the people in the house with no warning. D texted the group chat of their arrival moments after B saw them all. I told her the time to tell us and the time to find a hotel was 4.5 hours ago. When they started driving, she has avoided me since. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Either she's lying to you, she's lying to the family, or both. It sounds like the family is extremely respectful of the home as you have not stated anything about messes, dirting the house, or not picking up after themselves. If the family came early and had a hotel booked, why are they staying through the whole weekend? I am inclined to believe that she told them they could stay there for the entire weekend to save on expenses. You should get a new roommate.